This is a quick video on how to do a thermostat on an 0506 Jeep Liberty CRD. You can see right here, see the leaking that's going on right here? These are sealed, and then right here it's pressed in, and the rubber seal that's pressed in there comes loose or comes bad, and you get radiator fluid slipping past it. See that? So there's a rubber O-ring type seal in there, and it's compressed in there in the factory, and you just start losing coolant that way because the seal just doesn't lock up. Unfortunately, it's non-repairable without doing heavy modifications, and so the only solution that you're left with is buying a new one. I recommend buying the OEM one from Bear. You can get them at idparts.com in the US. But there are some on Amazon and stuff. So the ID part one is 3 to 4 times more expensive, and the ones on Amazon and eBay and stuff are about 35 bucks delivered. You can go that route, but the quality just isn't as good. But to be completely honest, neither is the OEM quality. Tools I got here is a 10mm, 8mm flathead screwdriver, some ratchets, razor, a couple of other regular typical tools to get the job done. You're gonna also want just a catch can to grab the radiator fluid. Throw that down below. You're gonna have a mess, and so you might want to also get some just a piece of cardboard or something just to throw down there. You can disconnect the negative cable. You're not really dealing with any voltage. Some people probably recommend that. I don't want to because I got my settings there and everything, and so at your own risk. I guess the safest route is to disconnect the negative just in case, but I'm not going to. So let's get started. Disconnect the mass airflow sensor. Disconnect this other sensor right here. Or maybe this is the mass airflow sensor. Here. Grab an 8mm. Unscrew the main inlet tube from the box. Right there. Disconnect this rubber thing right here. The box just pops out. So disconnect this guy, disconnect this guy. Set that aside. The thermostat's located right back here, and it's held on by 3 10mm bolts. And then also, if you look right here, you've got a bolt right here and right here holding it, stabilizing it onto the there's a delete kit for it. It's the heater pump. And so you have to remove that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. The fan shroud is almost in the way, so you want to just break it free and then just unscrew it by hand.
Of course, mine's a little too tight.
Okay, that's what this looks like right here. So this connects onto the heater, and this connects onto the, this goes onto the heater, this goes onto the thermostat and just stabilizes it. Right here is the OEM New Thermostat. You can see it's a little bit better than the older OEM thermostats. Before this, you could see, you would have been able to see like a bump here and stuff, and you had to clean up the surface and make sure it was nice. It was a little bit better. And I got these from idparts.com. Here's the part number right here. Made in Italy. And when they go bad a few ways. If you take a look right here, the reason why there was radiator fluid seeping out of the top is because if you open this guy up, it's got a rubber seal, and this rubber seal goes out, but you can see that on the new one, it's crimped right here. The aluminum is crimped. And so the only way to open it is to use a cutoff tool and cut it off and then pry it up. Once you've pried it up, you'll be able to see the fault in it, which is this guy. I mean, theoretically, if the thermostat was okay and it was just leaking, you could, you know, if it was serviceable, you could just, you know, swap out this O-ring, seal it back up, and you're good to go. But unfortunately, because it's crimped on there by some special machinery, there isn't a way to fasten this guy back on to the housing. And because of that, it's not really serviceable. It's a shame. But that's the way it works, I guess. Just for reference, this is that $30 Amazon one. And it's, to be fair, I mean, it's shinier. So that's something. There's a little part number right here. I don't know if you can read it, but it says THA 23042, starts out EVC 122011, THA 23042. I don't know if that's an internal number for them, but that's it. It comes with a little kind of fibrous gasket right here. I wouldn't trust that very much. I mean, I wouldn't really even trust this gasket. I got this just to kind of see what it was all about. I have not installed this, and I'm not going to install this. ID Parts also sells an upgraded gasket for it. And so I'm going to install this along with the OEM, and hopefully that'll solve the slight leak. And this happens just all the time on these diesel Jeeps. I mean, that's why I've got so many of them. So go ahead and put this away. Just give you guys kind of a little understanding on how it works. Also going to want to remove the turbo inlet hose. It's not an 8mm. Oh, it is. Okay, never mind. So we can use an 8mm just to loosen that guy up. And right down here. Inlet hose. It should be a little oily, not too oily. I also put on some Tessa tape. It's kind of the German equivalent of electrical tape around these 2 points, so then this kind of netting wouldn't get chafed or stuck up in there. So that's kind of how I did it. Another thing, so there should be just a little bit of oil, not too much, but just slightly damp. I like to kind of just remove the clip, or I like to remove the hose clamps so they don't fall up and disappear. And then I also like to just put, you know, just a rag right here and leave it kind of out so you kind of remember. The last thing you ever want to do is have this thing, you forget about this thing and install it. You're gonna have a hard time. I like to just put this in here and then kind of just angle it So if there is any oil, it's just going to start dripping down while you're doing the job. It's just kind of set aside. Okay, so now we have a little bit more room. I'm going to remove the connector to the viscous heater. Okay, and I'm going to also have to remove the cold air intake, or the intake inlet. And when you remove the intake inlet, you're also going to remove this kind of equivalent to a PCV hose right here, and they're all connected together, and you want to do this pretty gently, because depending on how old your vehicle is, it could be pretty, the rubber might be close to being perished, and what you don't want is, you know, tearing that boot. Grab the screwdriver or pry bar of your choice, give it a little pressure just to get it out of there. And then kind of finagle your way out. You can see all kind of the remnants of the coolant spraying out from that dumb little leak. Okay, so that's out of the way. And now I kind of rerouted this because our delete system installed, and so the hoses just weren't routing comfortably, so I kind of just moved things out of the way. And that's why yours probably has like a metal bracket that comes over here and then splits, and it's got the bypass if you have an EGR delete, or if you don't, it'll just look a lot cleaner and a lot more OEM, I guess. Our next step right here is just to remove this hose right here. So I'm going to remove this hose that connects to this guy right here for reference. Also, another reference is, and this is on here, when I was telling the viscous heater, this connects right here, and then this connects to the viscous heater right here. And these are the 3 bolts that connect to the cylinder head. Remember that the coolant temp sensor we need to remove from the old thermostat. Since the thermostat's already held on to the head, right now is a lot easier way to remove it. I'm pretty sure it's a 19 or a 17 millimeter. So it's a 19 millimeter. Grab right here and just give it one soft little bump. So it's just, now it's hand tight, and then you can easily remove it after that. The 2 outlets right here, and then the top outlet that goes to the radiator. Because these two are pretty similar, and I don't really think it makes a difference, to be honest. Which one connects to which, but just to know, I'm just gonna put a T right here for the top, and by process of elimination you'll know that the other one is the bottom. So let's go ahead and disconnect the top one, or the large one that connects to the radiator. At this point, they might be kind of stuck on there. I've just barely replaced did an engine rebuild on this, so mine are pretty good. So you're gonna get some fluid loss. So just get ready for that. It'll start dripping. Then remove the bottom one. And finally have full access to the thermostat, and now we need 10mm long reach socket. So this is the kind of guy I like to use, just a little one. These are not very tight in there, so you don't need to go full hog wild on them. And just be aware that if you do drop these bolts, you might have a hard time, depending on if you have the bottom skid plate removed or not. I like to crack all three of them, break the seal of the bolts before I loosen all of them out, just in case. Okay, all three are removed. All three are completely loosened. And now I'm gonna just grab my telescoping magnet right here. Just reach in, grab one, grab two, grab three. Two of them are the same size. One is smaller. It's pretty self-explanatory. Set them aside. To avoid any, if you're gonna reuse the thermostat for one reason or another, or you know, if you just don't want to do any damage, I would just grab like a nice little nylon one side, rubber the other side, mallet. Just give it a little tap, it should come out. That's it, that's all it took. So now, we've got our bad thermostat, and the temp sensor is easily removed. There we go. Set that aside. Here's our bad temp sensor, our thermostat, and can you believe it? The only thing that's actually wrong with this is just the seal right here. If you were to just been able to just tighten that up just a little bit, this whole thing would have been solved. But that's the way it goes. If you look in here though, you'll be able to see there are remnants of a little bit of silicone and pieces of the gasket there. So that's got to get removed. Obviously, the head's aluminum, and removing this, it could be you could very easily remove it with, you know, a wire wheel. But what you'll end up doing is scuffing the head, and then you're not going to have a great seal, and then you're going to have a leak another way. So what you want to do is gently clean up the surface. While you're getting ready to clean up the surface, just grab a little piece or a little towel.
Shoot it in here.
For the love, please don't forget that your towel is in there. So I've already cleaned it off. Another cool thing is this right here. It's just basically like a refillable, you can put like some sort of solvent or another chemical in here, or water, and you just pressurize it like a tire. And I just use it for air. So I just grab my little Milwaukee air pump, and I can set it to like, it can hold a decent amount of pressure. I set it to like maybe 70 psi. Doesn't hold much, but it's enough. You kind of just point it in the right direction. Get most of that crud. Then you can get solvent of your choice. Of course, mechanic's best friend is the brake parts cleaner. This is the good stuff. It's the non-California stuff, so you know it's good. Clean off your surface. Remove your towel that's in there that was keeping debris from coming in. Give it one more little cleanup. Close up of where we're at right here. That's how we're looking. So now we've got a nice clean surface. We got our new gasket, new thermostat. At this point, you can clean this off right here. And there are a bunch of opinions as to, I think the manual will tell you to just fit this on just like that. Fit it on nice and dry, and the seal will do its job and go for it. Now, I like a little bit of insurance, and so what I do is just put the tiniest little bead of blue RTV on both sides. Okay, so on this side, and then I put the gasket on there, and then I just put it over on the other side so it'll meet there. To each their own. That's the way I do it. Doesn't mean that's the way you do it. I guess the recommended way to do it is to not do that, but just to put it in dry. And whatever you decide to do, best of luck. Now the OEM thermostat has a few casting marks that I just don't really like. Like if you see this right here, I don't know if you're able to see that, but it's got a bit of a casting mark right here, and that's right on the ridge where the upper radiator hose connects to, and that can create a fault point. Right here, there's a little bit of a casting mark. Right here is a little bit of a casting mark. And so what I'm gonna do is clean it up. You don't have to. It should be fine. But that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, it's just a little cleaned up right there. This got removed. A little cleaned up here. Didn't mess with this. Just cleaned up a little bit right here. Right here. Just all the little, you know, casting marks got mostly removed. Most of that doesn't really make a difference. The only thing I'd recommend is just basically this part right here. This part right here. Make sure that it's got a nice little seal right there. What I'm gonna do is grab your brake parts cleaner. Get it nice and doused. Make sure it's all. And finally, what I'm going to do is just grab a little bit of my compressed air. Make sure it's cleaned out. Now we got a nice cleaned up OEM thermostat. Okay, it's a lot better if you look at the old one or the other one. See the difference? Again, it's 8 by 125. Make sure it catches on okay. Much cleaner. All right. I'd recommend not doing, unless it's really, really bad, I'd recommend not doing it in there, into the head, just because of the risk that you could, you know, cross thread that. It's just a really tight fit in there. Unless it's really, really, really bad, I wouldn't do that. Up to you. So I cleaned up the thermostat, the temperature sensor, and I'm going to use a little bit of blue RTV. Now, it already comes with like a little aluminum gasket right there, but it doesn't really hurt. Just make sure that it's not getting onto the sensor, all right? Just keep in mind that what you don't want is anything to get on there. Grab the thermostat, put this in, and I'm not going to tighten it up until I can get like good leverage, so once it's mounted on there. Okay, so just keep in mind that you want to tighten that up. Now, I don't have any thread locker. I thought I did, but can't find any. So I'm just going to put a tiny amount right here on each one of these bolts. You know, it's going to do a very similar purpose to thread locker. I think in the manual it doesn't even say that you need to put thread locker in there, but whatever you want to do. I'm just going to grab a little bit here again. I've already cleaned this up with brake parts cleaner, or acetone, or whatever solvent you want. This is not the way the manual says for you to do it, but I believe just getting the tiniest little skim coat on there, you know, almost nothing. See right there, it's like almost nothing. Doesn't hurt, and it definitely could help. And I'm gonna grab a little bit and put it on
the head portion too.
Like I mentioned before, that's up to you. Grab our new updated gasket. So, bring it in over from the outside. Especially after you've cleaned the threads on the bolt, it should go in hand tight. There, and the final small bolt, you just use the magnet to put it in place, and then I caught it with the extender. So now I'm just going to grab a 1/4 inch.
Good. Good. Okay, draw hand tight.
Now it's hand tight. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little bracket. Alright, so now you're just gonna screw on the little holder for the thermostat to the viscous heater. And you're gonna want to torque down bolts to 21 foot-pounds, 27 euros or Newton meters. Okay, 21. There we go. Bottom one's a little bit harder to reach. All right. I don't know what the torque setting is on this, but it's brass. Don't do anything stupid. Just give it a little bit. I'd say like 1/8 of a turn past and tight. If you see a little leak, give it a little bit more of a squeeze to tighten it, but the last thing you want to do is break off that brass fitting inside the thermostat. You're gonna have a bad day. Okay. Connect this hose back in. Oh, before I do that, another thing I like to do, this is preference, I like to use a little bit of dielectric grease. Just give it a little bit right here on the nipples to avoid chafing the nipple.
Yep. This is the bottom one. Bring it back in. Back. Bring the wires back all together. Dielectric.
I use a little dielectric in these areas in particular because it's an area that gets a lot of weather, water, coolant in there, and you don't want it to, you know, short out or give you a false reading. Another little thing that I'm gonna do, you're able to see there in there? That's the seal, the gasket, head, and thermostat. And what happens is that it creates like a pool. If you get any sort of leak, you're gonna create a pool of coolant, or if you have like a diesel leak, or something like that, and those sorts of things just can corrode these type of gaskets, right? And you don't want it to just be sitting in there kind of brewing and heating up. And so what I'm going to do is run a little bead of RTV over it so it'll kind of just spill off, or it won't sink into the gasket material. Just my opinion. What I'm going to do. Doubt it'll hurt. Could possibly help. Okay, this is it after I put a little RTV in there. It's not much, but I think that in the event of a leak, which is inevitable, unfortunately, with these cars, you're going to have a leak coming from somewhere, that it'll drizzle down and go along the sides instead of just resting right on top of that gasket, which is the last thing you kind of want, is a gasket to just be absorbing some sort of solvent, the diesel, coolant, or whatever it may be in there. So that's what I did.
Alright, so I put this heater back up. Okay. Let's put in the...
There's like a little bit of residue in there. I like to use 303 Aerospace, you know. It's kind of like a vinyl protectant, but it works great for any sort of like hoses that you don't really want to perish too much. So I'm just gonna give it a couple sprays out here. Just wipe it down, you know, just to give it a fighting chance. It's relatively new, but these kind of parts are becoming harder and harder to come by. I don't even think you can find an air box for these anymore. So, fish this guy through.
I'm actually going to disconnect the connector for the thermostat temperature sensor, the coolant temperature sensor, so avoid breaking that wire. In there. Next to the PCB, whatever they're gonna call it. Some Italian word probably. Reconnect. Cool temperature sensor. Okay, that's connected. So now all we're left with are the two airbox sensors. And also connecting up the upper turbo hose.
So remember to pull out your rag here. Move your rag. So, and then just kind of set it to a place where it's like slightly above. Slightly above, and so it won't fall down. There we go. Let's go right here. I'm going to do it like this. Is probably the best way to do it.
Loosen it up. Bring it down. Let's go.
Make sure it's over the lip and tightened more than you'd normally tighten a hose clamp. because I've had it before, and I'm sure other people have had it on these. Anything that's turbo, you're dealing with, you know, a pressurized system. It'll pop off. The hose will pop off. You'll hear a nice pop on the freeway, and you'll lose all pressure. See, mine right there didn't even, I missed it. It just all of a sudden got really, really loose. And that's the best indication that, like, you know, it just slipped off of it. So make sure it's all the way seated at the bottom. And there are 2 white stripes. You want it, so long as the hose is as seated as it can be, and your hose clamp is between the 2 right stripes, you should be able to tighten it, and it should be at the right place. Okay, it's nice and snug. Same thing right here. Again, just for demonstration. Here are the 2 white stripes. Here's the lip. Bring it over, and you want to align this with a little mark right here. It's got a raised portion of it. And between these 2, you should be okay. Okay, turbo's back on. The turbo hose is back on. Clean off whatever debris you can get. Final stretch. Loosely get your airbox in place. Make sure your wires are out of the way. Have it kind of in the area, but don't snug it down, because what you want to do is get this cold air intake little doodad that probably does nothing, but whatever. You want to put it in there. Connect it in there. Loosely fitting right there. There. Remove the blue RTV that you've put everywhere. Make sure this is nice and set in place. Grab your 8mm. This one doesn't have to be too tight. Make sure it's sitting nicely in the airbox though. Now you can grab your 2 connectors. One, clip in there. 2, reaches over, underneath. Clip in there.
Grab your Mopar overpriced coolant. No problem, slower.
That's it. Now, since I used RTV, I'm gonna wanna wait, you know, a few hours. It's pretty hot here. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it's like 100 degrees and it's extremely dry. Because of that, I'll be able to get away with driving this, you know, within a day. Depending on your area, if it's extremely cold or humid, your mileage may vary. Check instructions, etc., etc. Be smart enough to just be practical. I'm gonna top this off, but that's it. Thermostat replaced on an 05, 06 US model Jeep Liberty CRD.